All right, happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's that time of the week, and yes, I am back from vacation, but it is that time of the week to do our InDesign Tuesday. So, welcome, everyone. I see a bunch of people coming in the room already. Mark, Baldir, Colleen, as usual, welcome. Adolph, Dafir, welcome as well. Steve, glad you're here all the way from New Zealand. That is awesome. And Patrick, thanks for being here from Ireland. Vyacheslav, hopefully I said that correctly. Did it justice. Amy, thanks for being here as well. So today we're going to take a look at, we're going to actually do kind of, even though they're not directly tied together, we're going to kind of do a continuation of my last stream. My last stream was based on just all kinds of text linking techniques that people seem to really like, especially people that are new to InDesign or maybe needed a refresher. Today we're going to do the same kind of thing, but we're going to talk about just frames in general, not just text frames, not just image frames, kind of just frames for the sake of frames. All right, and let's see if that's welcome on Twitter. I can't read your handle, but it looks like I'm not even going to try. I don't want to screw it up that badly, but welcome on Twitter as well. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and dive in. I got a lot to show, even though on some of the social media I said 5 tips, going to be way more than 5 tips, but if you want to leave after 5, you can. So we're going to do a bunch of tips today on frames in InDesign. So InDesign Tuesday, let's get to it. I'm going to switch over to my computer. And Byron, thanks for being here and thanks for liking the streams. Glad to have you. All right, so as usual, because people love to see things from scratch, I've got InDesign open with no document, so we can just go ahead and do it from scratch. With that said, I'm going to start off with just a blank document first, just to get some framing, back to the basics, a couple of things right off the bat. And then we'll open up one of the templates and talk about some more, just slightly more advanced techniques. All right, so let's go new document, which you could also just do Command N. Since we're doing a live stream, I usually like to work with a wide document, just easier to see on screen. So this is 11 by 8.5 instead of an 8.5 by 11. No primary text frame, no facing pages, just one page to start off with, and it is in the wide format. We'll go ahead and create that. And again, that gives me a nice starting point to work with. All right, so my first tip, so tip number 1, and this has been since day 1 in InDesign, is that while frames are required, they're not necessarily, it's not necessary that you create them first. You have an option with InDesign. You have the option of laying out your page with the content that you expect to come in and then create the frames ahead of time, or you have the ability to lay out the content lay out the page with the content, placing it and having it create frames for you automatically, or any mixture of the two. So for example, let's talk about what's a frame. A frame is really any vector shape. You can use any vector shape as a frame. There are 3 specific frame tools right above my head here. There's the rectangle tool, you get to it with the letter F, the ellipse tool, which is the one I was on, and the polygon tool. Now, again, that seems like, oh, you only have those 3? Nope, those are just the 3 tools, but like I said, you can create a frame with just about any vector. Now, you're going to say, well, if that's the rectangle frame tool, then what's the difference between that and the rectangle tool? And I used to use this joke way back in the day all the time. One has an X in it and one doesn't. That's pretty much it from a standpoint of functionality. They both will do the exact same thing. To be more specific, back in the days when InDesign first came out and was competing with Quark Express, the way you would place an image inside of Quark Express is you would draw out this picture box, and it would have an X in it. So we basically simulated that kind of experience for the Quark Express users to make it more friendly to them. But whether I draw it with a rectangle or with the rectangle frame tool, I can place an image in it. So which one do I use then? If I know I'm going to place an image into a frame, then I am going to use the one with the X in it. Just logically, it just seems to make more sense. It doesn't matter either way though. But if I'm going to draw a rectangle, maybe it's going to have something in it, maybe it's not, maybe it's just going to be a color, maybe it's just going to be a border, then I will use the rectangle tool. And yes, you can place an image in a frame and put a border on it too. So you can use this pretty much any way you want. All right, so let's say we drag out a frame. We can drag the frame out. We get the ability, once it's been placed on the page, we can move it around. We can resize it. We can make it a very specific size by typing in the dimensions up here. So if I wanted a frame that was exactly 3.5 inches by 2.5 inches, I can make a business card size frame just like that. So you can draw it out freehand, or you can make it very specific, whatever size you want. And of course, you can always pick up any handle and move it around. Now, there are two additional handles here that we're going to, actually this one and this one, we're going to talk about those a little bit later, but those are kind of fairly newer features of frames. These weren't always here from back in the day. So one is, well, I'll get to them in a minute. Anyway, and if I wanted a elliptical frame, switch over to the ellipse. And if I want an oval, just draw an oval. If I want a square, a perfect circle, I hold down the Shift key. And if I were drawing a rectangle and I want a perfect square, I'd hold down the Shift key. Now, again, these can be put anywhere. They can overlap each other. They can be anywhere you want. And whenever you get ready, you can put content into them. So how do we get content into them? You can select the frame first. You can go up to your file menu. You can choose place. You can go grab whatever content you want. It does not have to be an image. You can place text into one that has an X in it. It will say, oh, you want text instead of an image? No problem. Or you can, let's see what this is. This looks like an image. Yep, that's an image, or I can place an image in it. Either way. So for example, let's say I want to place that image in. The image comes in. We see a very muscular arm. We know there's more to it than that. And if I grab the ellipse and I do the same thing, place and go grab text, we use the Gettysburg Address this time, and there's my text. And it's saying I'm missing a font, but that's okay. All right, so there's my text inside of a frame, and there's my, my image inside of a frame. Now the next tip is about fitting your content to make it, to be able to see it. So when I select this, I can either do one of two things. I can say, well, I do want the image to be 100% the size it is, which is what we got. And I get this grabber hand in the middle, and I can hold it down for a couple seconds. This is my patient user mode, because if you don't hold it down for a couple seconds, you're just moving an outline and you don't know what you're going to get till you let go. But if you hold it down for a couple seconds, you actually get to see what the content is, and you can place it better and get it just where you want it to be. Maybe I don't want the text. Maybe I just want him. And there we go. We get it in place. So moving the content around in the frame is one way to get it to look the way you want. The other way is to use a fitting command, and there are several. So there is the two that are the ones that are used the most have now been moved. They used to be down further in the menu and down further in the icons. Now they're right up front. Fill frame proportionally is probably the one I used to use, probably 99% of the time. But now there is a content aware fit, which is brand new as of October, and that's the one I'm starting to use more. You can also set that as your default, so you won't ever have to do this again. So let's go ahead and say fill frame proportionally, and that's exactly what it does. It fills the frame proportionally, so there's no white space left over. And there's no white space left over, but it may crop off some of your image. So how do I know some of my image has been cropped off? Patient user mode, press and hold, count to 2. And then you can see, oh, the left and right side of this image were cut off a little bit. Do I care about that information? Nope, it's just part of the background, don't care. I want my image to fit the frame perfectly. That's what fill frame proportionally does. If I say fit content proportionally, the difference is it scales the content down so you see all of the content in the frame, nothing cut off, but then you're going to have some white space left over. Because if the frame is not the exact same size as the proportions of the content, it's going to leave white space either at the top, bottom, left, or right. So you decide what's more important. If I needed to see the edges of this image, maybe there's some data there, maybe there's some text there, then fit content proportionally would be the best one. If I don't care about the edges, fill frame proportionally is the best one. And if I don't care about the frame size, then I can say fit proportionally, and then I can do one more operation, which is fit the frame to the content, this button right here. That says, hey, I've got the content size down. I don't want that white space, and I don't need it to be exactly 2 inches high. Click, it will contract your frame to fit the content perfectly. So now there's no white space, there's nothing being cut off, and the image shows the right size that I made it, and everything's good. Okay, now with this text, what happens here? Well, we've already done this in the last stream with linking, so I'm not going to do a whole thing on linking again, but we know with the plus sign, there's more text than we can see here, and we can either keep making this bigger, we can make the text smaller, we can delete some of the text so it does fit, or we can continue it somewhere else. Those are pretty much your options. So if I say, well, I like the oval, the size that it is, maybe I can make it a little taller to fit more of it, but it's still not enough, then I can click that red plus sign and I can go anywhere else in my document, any page I want, and continue it. And this still may not be enough room. It is enough room. Okay, good. So then I can now play around with this frame. I can say, yep, I want that down here. Scale down, there's nothing being left over. There's no more red plus signs. And as we discovered last week or 2 weeks ago, if we show our text threads, we'll see the actual line going between them. Okay, perfect. So now you know how to create frames. You know how to put your content into an existing frame. But what if you wanted to create the frame on the fly? What if you didn't want to do 2 steps? 2 steps would be draw the frame, put the content in it. But what if I just want to do 1 step? Put the content down and it makes the frame for me. That's the way I probably do it most of the time. So for example, if we go back over here to my libraries, where I've got some content here and I want to go ahead and pull in, let's see, we got something here we haven't used in a while. Seems like I've been using these same images over and over again. Okay, I don't think I've used this one in a while, or maybe the tree. I can drag over the tree, and when I let go, I get this preview of what the tree looks like, and I get a placement, we call it the placement gun, so I can click and put this anywhere I want. Now, here's the problem. If I click, and I don't know how big that is, because I don't, 100, it's going to come in at 100% size. Just like the guy's, we only saw part of his arm, it came in at 100% size because that's what it does by default. If I click, and I don't know, it's just going to be one giant tree. Okay, so it's too big to fit in this space. I can undo, Command Z, and then I can say, you know what? Nope, instead of me clicking and just being at 100, I'm not holding down any keys. I'm just going to drag, and it will proportionally make a frame that's the exact size that it needs, the exact proportions it needs to be to fit that content. And now I'm making a frame the exact size that I need. So that way, you click, drag your content over, or place your content, and you drag the exact size you want. So now I've done 2 things in one step. I placed my content, I've got it the exact same size that I needed it to be, and I didn't have to draw a frame first. So, and the same thing works with text. If I were to come down, let's get rid of this, for example. Let's delete all this. And I were to go place that same Gettysburg Address again. There it is. I don't have a frame selected. Yep, and I'm missing that font. And I were to go ahead and draw out a frame, it will place the content in that frame that I drew out. So 1 step versus 2. And of course, you can do it either way. All right, so now that I've got that in place, let's see, what else? The other thing is that I showed you the frame tools, you know, ellipse, polygon, rectangle, but I said that you could make a frame with any shape. So even if I were to use the pen tool, the pencil tool, or any other tool that will create a closed shape, I can go ahead and make a frame for me. So I'm going to grab my stylus. since I am using the pencil, which is very free form. You draw any way you want. And let's say I want to draw a nice S. All right, so I've got my nice S there. And now if I were to drag over some clouds and place them inside that frame, I get clouds inside the frame. And now if I do a fill frame proportionally, I see more of the sky filling up that S. So I can see all the clouds. There's no white space left over, but there's probably some of the image being cut off. Okay, so frames, don't think about them as, oh, it's got to be a square, got to be a circle, got to be a polygon, whatever shape you want. Even if you go get it from Illustrator and copy and paste it into InDesign, those shapes can be frames as well. All right, what is the shortcut to show the top toolbar? Well, there's not necessarily a shortcut, or there may be, I don't know what the shortcut is. But what you're referring to is the control panel, which is Command, I guess, Option 6, or just go up here and choose Control. That's how you get it. All right, so hopefully that answers your question, Jenny. All right, so now next up, let's do my next tip. Okay, here's one. I'm going to go ahead and open up that template I talked about earlier. So let's do new document again. This time we're going to grab a template. This is a proposal template, one you can get for free from Adobe Stock. Just go search templates. And I want to work with this frame right here. So there's a frame already in this template. Here it is. It's behind another shape. And now I want to bring, and by the way, this frame is gray. So yes, frames can contain color. If I go back to this and I create a frame first, let's say I create this frame first and I go in and say, hey, I want that to have a fill color. That frame has a fill color now. Now, if I put something in it, like a picture, I may not see the color anymore because if the picture takes up the whole frame, then obviously I can't see the color because it's taking up the whole frame. But if I give myself some padding or margin, then I will be able to get, the color and the frame. So for example, if we go back, the color and the image. We go back here, this is filled with gray. I can see the gray fill color right up here at the top. Now, if I go ahead and place something in it, like my new chair image here, or no, I don't want that chair, I want the other chair. There should be another chair. There was another chair. Thought I had another chair. Maybe I don't have another chair. If I don't have another chair, we'll use something else. Because I'm going to save that chair for something else. Is why I'm not picking that one. All right. You know what, though? At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. All right, let's grab this one anyway. All right, let's pull it in. I'm going to go ahead and click and place it. It comes in and fills up, and I don't see the gray anymore, but it doesn't have to. Because the frame is whatever size it was made, so the full size of the page, whatever size page this is. And the content came in and pretty much filled it up. There's probably, there's more picture than there is more picture than there is frame. But you don't have to live with that. If you want to size it down, you can. We already know we can fill it proportionally. We can size it down that way. We already know that we can also use content aware fit so that it puts the content in focus when it fits it down. But you can also adjust the image independently of the frame. We know that we can pick up the whole frame and move it around. We know that we can move the image around. We know that we can move the image around in the frame. There's the whole image. But you can also scale the image inside the frame. So for example, let me fit it down and get it smaller first. And now let me double click, because if I double click on the image, that will take me into the mode that lets me select the image, not the frame. So if I hold down my shift key, I'm scaling down the image and I'm moving the image around in the frame and making the image smaller. So I'm not messing with the frame at all. I'm just making my image smaller inside that frame. Maybe I want to make it the size of the margins. So I can do that and then pull it up. Okay, so that way there's one frame with a smaller image inside of it. We get to see the gray background of the frame because the image isn't filling up the frame. So this is another technique when I talked about drawing a border or doing something like that. Another technique is to just simply use a fill color and make your image or content smaller to fit within the frame. But how does that work with text? Let's go back to our other document. And let's get rid of this for a second. And let's go ahead and place that text one more time. So we'll do place. And we'll grab whatever Word, text file, whatever you have. And yes, I know the font's missing. I should fix that. And we'll go ahead and place some text in a frame here. Now, that text will automatically go to the edges of any frame. So whether it's an ellipse, an S, whatever it is, it will automatically go all the way to the edge. And unlike an image, there's no way to double click and move the text around inside the frame. It doesn't work that way. But what you can do is use the frame options to make your text, to give yourself more padding around the frame to make your text come inside more. So let's go up to our object menu. Let's come down to text frame options. And you have the ability to control your inset spacing, what I was referring to as padding. This is the technical term for it, inset spacing. So the inset spacing says that, hey, I want to go in and instead of it being 0, and I've linked it, so yeah, they're linked together. Instead of it being 0, I'm going to preview it too. I'm going to go ahead and just add some space around the frame. So that's giving me that inset setting where I'm saying, hey, give me a 1/4 inch of space from the edge of the frame before the text starts, all the way around or on specific sides if I unlink. Maybe I want the bottom to still be 0. So the text goes all the way to the bottom of the frame, but it comes in from the left, right, and top. Or not. It's up to you. Maybe I want more space at the bottom, 0.5 instead. So now I have more space at the bottom than I do on the other 3 sides because maybe I'm trying to put a signature or something down there. So you can control the inset all you want. Now with that said, if you have an inset, then that also frees up the stroke and the color of the frame. So if I go in and say, hey, I want this to have a nice, do I have anything nice and light? I don't. Let's put blue behind it for now. We can also control, what color that is. Let's put a nice lighter color in there. There we go. And I can also put a stroke on it as well. So I can say, hey, put a stroke around this and make the stroke the darker color that we started with. And let's go ahead and make the stroke nice and thick so we'll be able to see it. And there we are. And the more I add to the frame, the inset respects the measurements that I said. So if I made that stroke really thick, it's still going to bring the text in by the exact amount that I told it. So you can go in and create whatever boundary around your objects you want, whether it's images or text or either or. Now, while we're on this subject, let me go back to this document we started with. Another tip is applying your special effects. Special effects such as transparency effects and all of the things that you can do in special effects inside of InDesign are frame-based. So in other words, if I want to put a drop shadow on this frame, is the drop shadow going to be on the chair image or is it going to be on the frame? It's going to be on the frame. So for example, if I go up here and I choose drop shadow and I were to do a preview so we can see it, see how the drop shadow has nothing to do with the chair image? It's on the outside of the frame itself. So just keep that in mind. If I needed the drop shadow to be on the chair, I'd probably want to put the chair in its own frame on top of this frame. So if I click OK, that gives me a drop shadow around the outer frame because they're frame based. But if I said, hey, I really wish that were around the chair instead, then what I would do is bring the chair over. I'd make the chair whatever size it needs to be, move it over. Now, I wouldn't have two chairs. I'm just doing this for the sake of speed. Command Shift to scale. And then I would go ahead. Now, if I put the drop shadow on the chair, you don't need two. We get rid of the first one. Then I would go ahead and just simply say drop shadow. And now the drop shadow is going to be on that frame of the chair. So that's the difference. And if you needed both, then you would still have the gray frame with nothing in it. And you'd have the chair frame with the shadow on it. And you'd have two shadows or two whatever effects you wanted. All right, next up, speaking of that chair, you'll notice that that chair has a watermark on it because this image is from Adobe stock and it has a file number, so you know which image it is. And it has not been licensed yet. So that means that I'm just working with a free preview. Previews are great. You can place them right in InDesign, show them to your client. If your client signs off on it or your boss signs off on it, then you can go purchase the license to the image so you can use the high-res version. But until then, you can keep using these previews to your heart's content. Mock-ups, showing clients, whatever it is you want. But let's say I do decide to, or my client decides, yep, that's the chair we want. That's the image we want to use. Go ahead and license it. We approve your invoice. Well, in that case, in most of the other Adobe apps, I'd have to figure out which library that chair came from and go, license it from there, so forth and so on. One thing I love about InDesign is they make it very obvious that images can be licensed right in the frame. So, for example, let's go back to this other document here. And let's say I place the chair in this frame instead, which, by the way, how do I replace something? Because if I click right now, I'm going to have the tree and the chair. But if I want to put the chair inside that image to replace the tree, another tip, hold down your Option or Alt key. You notice, and here, I'll see if I can show it to you. See how I'm getting the little curved brackets around it? If I was just getting the little square around it, the little angle, then it's going to place it independently. But if I hold down my Option or Alt key, then I get the little brackets letting me know, hey, this is about to replace whatever it is you're about to click on. So let me zoom out and hold down my Option key, click. So now the tree's gone. The chair is now replacing it. And once again, if I were to fill this proportionally, there we go. And now I want to license this because my client says yes. Then what I can do is simply go right up here. There's an icon for it in the upper right-hand corner called License Image. So you can license it right on the canvas just by clicking that icon. If that's the image you want to buy, just click it. You don't have to worry about where is it in the library. Once you license it, it will download the high-res. It'll replace the high-res in the library and therefore replace it everywhere you've used that image. So it's doing that now in the background, and at some point it will update and this Adobe stock will go away like it just did. So now that it has a blue check mark on it in the library. So if I were to head over to the other document, yep, it's gone. The watermark's gone here because now that image has been licensed and everywhere that image has been used and linked is now updated. So I don't have to worry about going to replace it everywhere I've used it. Just license it once. Everywhere you've used it from the library, it will get updated. All right, let's see, I've got a couple more tips here. Let's get rid of this one for a quick second, and let's go in and let's create a frame. Now, another frame tip. We created frames with the, if you know you're going to put text down, then there's no reason to create a shape and then click the type tool and then click into it, unless you want a special shape. But if you know you just want a rectangle full of text, then all you have to do is just grab the type tool, because when you drag out with the type tool, it creates a frame that's already set up for text. The cursor is blinking right there. Okay. All right, so next up, if I want to put some text in this. So let's say chairs are awesome. All right. I'm not being creative today with my text, but there it is. Chairs are awesome. Notice that whenever you start typing into a frame, it always types at the top left corner of the frame or the top of the frame no matter what. Whether it's centered, whether it's right aligned, whether it's left aligned, it will be at the top of the frame. You make the frame taller, the text goes right up with it. You make the frame shorter, the text stays at the top. But sometimes you might want to have text in a frame, but not at the top of the frame. So we already know you could do an inset. But what if you want it not inset by a certain measurement, you just want it to be aligned differently in the frame? Maybe I want it in the center of the frame instead of the top, or maybe I want it at the bottom of the frame, no matter what size the frame is. So if you go back to those same frame options under your type menu, you've got, under object menu. I'm sorry, under your object menu, text frame options, Command B, you've got the ability to also do vertical justification. So vertical justification is at the top right now, because that's where it does by default. I can say center. And now, no matter what, that text will always be centered in the frame, top to bottom. Now, if you wanted it centered left to right, you would still use your alignment to do it that way. But now, no matter what, that text will stay centered in the frame, no matter how big or how short I make the frame. So you have vertical alignment top, bottom, center, and fully justified if you want the text to spread out in the frame. All right, let's see. We did the license stock, we did the effects, we did the size, we did the fill and stroke, we did the vertical alignment. I'm just making sure I got through everything. There is one more. Let's do it on this one. So I said I would talk about what these other two handles are. I almost forgot. So first and foremost, let's undo. Undo, 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 undo. Why am I doing all these undos? Because I want to get back to this. It's just easier for me anyway. Let's go ahead now and let's bring up the story editor, and I want to delete everything after that. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay. So now I've got this frame with some text in it. I've got this image. So what are those two extra handles for? And I'm still going to need some more room. Let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of this. Let me move this over. I need more room. All right, let's do it that way. Perfect. All right, so the yellow one, this is kind of cool actually. The yellow one is for rounding corners. So you click, and now once you click it, you get a diamond on each one of the four corners, and you can just drag in to do your rounding. So if you wanted to round your corners, you could. And one of the things that people always ask for whenever you do a rounded corner demo is, can I make one corner not rounded or only round one corner? And so I made the one corner not rounded by holding down the Shift key. If you hold down the Shift key, then you're rounding individual corners whatever way you want. Or if I can grab it. There we go. Oh, there's a limit as far as I'll go. You can round individual corners any way you want or not. So I pull that one back to the edge. If I don't want that one rounded, that one stays not rounded. If I don't want this one rounded, that one stays not rounded. Then I create a unique shape for my image. All right, next up, let's go ahead and scale it. Oh, I should probably point that out too. Here's another tip for beginners, because this will definitely frustrate you if you don't know. You're used to being able to pick up an object and scale it by grabbing the corners. But in InDesign, that works a little differently because it doesn't know if you want to scale the frame or the frame and the content. For example, if I just grab a corner and don't hold down anything, and I do that, all I've done was make the frame smaller. Now I'm only seeing the legs of the chair. If I want to make everything smaller, undo, hold down your Command key on Mac, Control key on Windows. That's what lets you scale both at the same time. More than likely, you also want to scale them proportionally. So you're going to hold down Command Shift or Control Shift on PC. So when I do Command Shift and scale, now I'm scaling both at the same time. All right, why am I doing all this? Why am I getting this all set up? Because this is to get the next button or handle situated. So what is this? Let me do one more thing here. I know this is a bad break in the sentence, but I just want to point something out. All right, there is something called anchored objects. And an anchored object is something that is the ability to anchor a frame into another frame so that they move together. So for example, let's say you were making a textbook and we'll use this, we'll just switch these. You were doing we can leave it the same way. We'll put it here and we'll move this over here. Let's say you were doing a textbook like this and you were making illustrations in the gutter or on the side there like that. Well, if that illustration or photo was with this text, you would want to make sure that if the text moved, maybe you added some more text at the top, you want the image to move down with it. You don't want to have to constantly manage, what does that image go with again? Oh, it goes with this passage 7 years ago. If the 7 years ago moves down, I want the image to move down with it. So what you can do is anchor the text, and now there's an easy way to do that with that blue square. You drag the blue square wherever you want it to be anchored. It creates an anchor to that spot. So now they're tied together, and it even puts a little anchor to let you know, hey, this has already been anchored to something. That's why the blue square is gone, and now there's an anchor there. So now if I were to add more text, everything moves accordingly. If this gets shifted to the next page, you can even have the anchor flip it over to the right side if it needs to. So you have complete control over how your anchor objects work, and that's what the blue square is for one frame to be anchored into another. All right, that's it for the tips. Way more than 5, probably more than you thought you were going to get today. But hopefully you will find this information useful, especially for my beginners, and maybe even some people that were InDesign experts that maybe forgot some of this. I don't know. But either way, hopefully you got something out of this, and I'm not seeing any burning questions. All right. Yep. Okay. All right. Lots of people from different countries. Great tips. Okay. All right. So with that said, we're going to call it an InDesign Tuesday wrap. So with that said, thanks everyone for watching. We will catch you on the next one. Bye everybody. Happy Tuesday. Continue on with your day. Great InDesigning. Bye everybody.